So should Christians get tattoos? Well, the answer to that is no. Since in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 28, it specifically states that as Christians, we should not be getting tattoos. Now, I have heard a lot of people state in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 28, that it doesn't specifically state the word tattoo. And the reason for that, the reason we don't find that word in older translations is because, the word tattoo wasn't incorporated into the English language until the 18th century. And so that word actually is derived from the Samoan language and as well as other Polynesian languages. And I'm pretty sure the word is tata. Now, I don't know if I'm doing the right pronunciation, but that's the reason why in older translations like the King James Version, it won't state tattoo, but that is exactly what it's actually talking about. So in this video, we're going to be discussing the spiritual dangers of Christians getting tattoos. All right, so now we're going to be talking about 4 reasons why people get tattoos. And what are the spiritual implications of this? So for number 1, people want to get a tattoo to look cool. Now this is actually one of the main reasons that most people get tattoos. Now the dangers of getting a tattoo to look cool is that you're opening yourself up to the spirit of vanity. There was actually a comedian that I watched, his name is Sebastian Maniscalco, and he kind of touched upon this, but one of his jokes or one of his comedic bits that he explained is that, have you ever noticed that when somebody gets a tattoo, and it's usually on the arm, that's usually when they get their first tattoo, that's usually the area that they get one on, and he said, have you ever noticed that every shirt ends up becoming a sleeveless? Well, why is that? It's because those people, the intention that they had in their hearts was to look cool. So in other words, vanity. They want people to look at them to think, wow, how cool, wow, how amazing that this person has this tattoo, or I love your tattoo. They want and crave that admiration from other people. And as Christians, we don't want to have that spirit of vanity in our lives. So a second reason why people get tattoos is to make themselves look tough. Now this again is vanity. Well, why is it vanity? Well, it's because again, the person that's getting the tattoo, the intention that they have in their heart is to try to get people to stay away, to stay clear from them. That's vanity because, again, the person is worried about how other people are looking at them. Now, there's no denying also that for hundreds upon hundreds of years, tattoos have always been closely associated with criminals. So it really doesn't matter if you're not a criminal, but you get yourself a tattoo. The fact that you're getting a tattoo, it automatically stigmatizes you. You open yourself to discrimination, whether you want it or not. There's a really great example of this, of somebody that's not even a criminal, but has a bunch of tattoos, even, covering his neck, I'm pretty sure he had some that was touching his face. There's a really popular video in the UK where this was actually a social experiment, and I'll actually leave the link to this video in the description. But just a quick rundown of what happens in the video. This social experiment is of this guy who's kind of buff. He's a big guy, but he was just, the experiment was that he was going to go around just the streets asking if anybody had change for $5, or sorry, I think it's £5 in the UK, and just to see if anybody would actually, break that 5 and give him some change. Well, what they found out is that nobody was talking to this person. If anything, they were kind of staying clear away from him, saying, nope, I don't have any change, kind of stay away from me. There was even one case where an elderly gentleman, the guy went up to him and he said, hey, do you have any change for this £5? And the old man literally told him, are you going to mug me? And the guy was like, why would I mug you? And so that video portrays a really good example of how getting a tattoo can really affect people. In people that aren't into that lifestyle of being criminals, people that just, again, wanted to get a tattoo to look cool, or any of the reasons that I'm going to be stating after this. A clear example of this is that still happens to this day, where it's super heavily stigmatized, is Japan. So for example, in Japan, you're not allowed to go to public pools, to saunas, or even hot springs. They won't even allow you, they won't even serve you, or even allow you to go into those public areas if you have any sort of tattoo. And it doesn't matter if you're a foreigner, there's no exceptions, because as mentioned before, criminals, especially in Japan, but this is worldwide, tattoos have always been closely associated with criminals. Now, for criminals, this isn't a deal breaker for them. If anything, this actually helps them out, since a lot of criminals already feel like outcasts. They already feel like outsiders. So for them to get a tattoo, if anything, it just encourages that idea of people to get away from them, since most criminals have a spirit of rebellion that's actually in them. And so segregating themselves even more doesn't affect them. But for other people, like Christians, this can be very dangerous, because you're actually opening yourself up to the spirit of intimidation, the spirit of haughtiness, the spirit of rejection, the spirit of vanity. And the reason I'm stating vanity again is because, again, the person, if their intention is to make themselves look tough so that people don't mess with them, well, that's vanity, because the person is concerned with how other people portray them. There's another video as well of another comedian. Now, this comedian, he doesn't seem like he's a criminal, like, whatsoever. He's got glasses. He actually looks kind of nerdy, but the guy has a huge tattoo running from his neck all the way, again, covered from, he's got just a bunch of tattoos all over his body. And again, I think it's wrapping around his face. I'm not too sure if he had any tattoos on his face, but he seems like a nice guy. And he actually made a joke about this, that this nerdy comedian was actually at Walmart. He was waiting in line, and all of a sudden this inmate comes up to him, and, the really, shady looking guy that has a bunch of tattoos, and he goes up to him and he's like, "Hey brother, where did you serve?" And the guy's like, and he didn't know what to say, and so he said Azkaban. And so that was the joke. And Azkaban, for those of you that don't know, is like a Harry Potter prison. So it has nothing to do with, he's not a criminal, the comedian, but that was the joke, is that, yeah, I'd Azkaban kind of a thing. And so, but anyways, let's move on to reason number 3. People get tattoos to remember their deceased loved ones. Now, this is actually a very common reason why people get a tattoo. Funny enough, Leviticus chapter 19 verse 28 actually specifically says for us not to get tattoos or make any markings on our flesh for the dead. And so this right here is not a good reason why people should be getting a tattoo, especially Christians, especially since the Bible specifically tells us not to do so. Well, the other danger, the spiritual danger of doing this is, number one, it's vanity. The majority of people that get a tattoo, for their deceased loved ones, they're not really getting it. That's not the main reason. That's not the main intention of why they're getting a tattoo. They want people to look at them and say, "Hey, what's the significance of your tattoo?" Most people want that attention. And again, if you're concerned with how other people are going to look at you, well, then that's vanity, because you're concerned about how other people are seeing you. You want to start a conversation with other people, but you don't want to start the conversation. You want somebody to notice a tattoo on you, and then you want to bring up the fact, and you want to talk about yourself. Talk about yourself and talk about, your family or whatever family member, deceased loved one that occurred. Vanity is what's basically the reason for that person to get the tattoo. It isn't for their deceased loved ones, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really make much sense for us to get a tattoo for our deceased loved ones. The majority of the world, there's several cultures, the majority of cultures around the world, not every, but I'm saying the majority, we already have a way of remembering our deceased loved ones. They're called cemeteries. They're called tombstones. Well, there's also several cultures around the world that actually designate one day out of the year so that they can go and visit those cemeteries to remember their deceased loved ones. And so that point doesn't make sense. And if anything, you run the risk of opening yourself up to the spirit of vanity, which is really dangerous. All right, so the fourth reason why people get tattoos is, and this is a reason that I heard a lot of Christian YouTubers state, is that people get a tattoo so that it's a good conversational starter. So people will tell themselves and make a loophole. They'll tell themselves, you know what, I'm going to get a tattoo of something biblical, something like a cross, so that someone else can come up to me and they might ask me, hey, what's that cross or what's that tattoo signify? So that then it opens up the conversation of me talking about my testimony or talking about talking about the good news, and so that I'm able to preach the good news. Now the problem here is that this is vanity. Well, why is it vanity? Well, as Christians, again, we are supposed to be preaching the word, but the problem here is that people are on purpose, they're trying to have other people come to them by solely based on their outward appearance. So the person that's getting this tattoo, their intention is that they want people to pay attention to them. They want to call attention to people to come towards them. Now, there's a lot of issues with this reason, and it kind of contradicts itself. We kind of touched upon this with the second reason. I'm pretty sure it was people get a tattoo to make themselves look tough. Well, just like what we were talking about with that, is that a lot of people get themselves tattoos to make themselves look tough because there's the stigma surrounding tattoos. So if anything, getting a tattoo so that you can have people approach you is not a very good tactic to try to preach the good news to them, since a lot of people aren't going to be willing to come up to you and speak to you. And we could see that with those two examples that I gave with those two videos of those with the social experiment in the UK with that guy that was not a criminal, but he looked like a criminal just by having tattoos. You're not going to be able to reach people if people are scared to approach you. And so if anything, getting a tattoo for the purpose of having to attract people, we are not going to be attracting people. You're actually going to be warding people away, especially if you have those spirits that we just talked about, the intimidation spirit, haughtiness spirit, and the spirit of rejection. So if anything, that whole reasoning that a lot of these Christian YouTubers were talking about in their videos, it backfires. If anything, it's a plan of the enemy, because the enemy doesn't want us to go and preach the good news. He doesn't want us to go and lay hands on the sick. He doesn't want us to go and cast out demons that are on people. And so if anything, this, you can see here where the sabotage can come. And and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you had a good intention. It doesn't matter that those Christian YouTubers tell themselves those lies so that they can tell themselves, no, this was a really good idea for me to get a tattoo. No, it doesn't matter if you have good intentions. Good intentions doesn't exempt you from the consequences of your actions. And another counter argument to those Christian YouTubers that were preaching this is that, as Christians, we shouldn't have to rely on our outward appearance to actually go and preach the good news. We shouldn't be a shy people that can't go up to somebody and start preaching the good news. If anything, the word specifically states in Matthew chapter 10, verse 7 to 8, that Jesus instructed us as Christians to go and preach the good news. We shouldn't have to wait for people to come towards us, because people aren't going to come towards us. We have to go towards them. And so right there, kind of just blows that reasoning, that argument that these Christian YouTubers were saying. It doesn't even make any sense. The enemy doesn't want us as Christians to be preaching the good news, to lay hands on the sick, to cast out demons. And so that, the enemy, and especially if that person is lost, the enemy is basically covering their ears, they're covering their eyes. Those people are truly lost. And so why would you expect someone to come towards you so that you can talk to them about Jesus? That's not how it works. We actually have to go towards them as instructed by Jesus. Now, the last part that I actually want to talk about regarding the spiritual dangers of getting tattoos is the issue of tattoos being an occultic practice. Since when you get a tattoo, what's actually happening is that you're actually doing a blood covenant between yourself, the person that's getting a tattoo, and the tattoo artist. Since getting a tattoo is an ancient and occultic practice, it's a blood covenant that's made with the mixing of the ink and the blood. But what's also happening here is that you're also making a soul tie with the tattoo artist and yourself, or the one that's getting a tattoo. And so this is where it actually gets very dangerous. And by the way, if you don't know what a soul tie is, I am going to be making a video just solely about that topic. And so once that video is out and you're watching this in the future, make sure to check the description as well as the pinned comment, because I'll leave a video link to that. But going back to what I was talking about, yeah, when you're getting a tattoo, since it is an ancient and occultic practice, it's a blood covenant. That's what you're doing. But you're also doing a soul tie with yourself, the one that's getting a tattoo, and also the tattoo artist. Now, the danger here is that tattoo artists, they don't just tattoo one person, especially if this is what they're doing professionally. So you can assume that a tattoo artist has tattooed hundreds upon hundreds of clients. And so when you're doing that blood covenant with a tattoo artist, you're not only doing a soul tie with yourself and the tattoo artist. No, it's a lot worse than that. You're actually making a connection or a covenant with not just the tattoo artist, but all of the people that tattoo artist has tattooed. And so this is where the huge issue occurs, because we don't know how many people that tattoo artist has tattooed, depending on his, the length of his career. But all those people, how many demonic spirits are affecting all of those people that tattoo artist has tattooed before he tattoos you? And now you're going to be sharing in the responsibility of all of those sins that those people have done. And so, who got a tattoo from this tattoo artist? Was it a Satanist? Was it a criminal? Was it somebody, that was dealing with the spirit of lust? Was it somebody that was dealing, there's so many demonic spirits that lost people are dealing with, and so if you're a Christian going to a tattoo parlor and you decide, I'm going to get a tattoo, it doesn't matter if it's a tattoo of a Christian thing or if it's something that's biblical. The problem is that the whole process of getting a tattoo is an occultic practice. And so you can't just be mixing and matching those two things. You can't be saying, oh, well, it's going to be good. It's going to be good if I just get a tattoo that's just of a godly things. No, it doesn't work like that, because the whole process of getting a tattoo is a very occultic. A really good example of this dual-mindedness is if we look at the witchcraft called Santeria, which is very prominent in Latin America. And that witchcraft is a mixture between witchcraft and Catholicism. Again, it doesn't matter if you're trying to mix, biblical things with things that are occultic. It's still going to be occultic at the end of the day, because it's already corrupted. It's already defiled. And so you can't as Christians decide, oh, well, I'm not going to get depictions of skulls or any other stuff. I'm just going to get really holy things, like I'm going to get a cross, a tattoo of a cross. It doesn't matter, because it's already corrupted. And so by you doing this, you, again, like we were talking about in this whole video, you can open yourselves to so many spirits, so many demonic spirits by doing this occultic practice, which is getting a tattoo. Like we were just talking about, you can open yourself to the spirit of vanity. You can open yourself to the spirit of haughtiness, intimidation, rejection. But not only that, you're also making a soul tie with the tattoo artist and all of the people that tattoo artist has tattooed before. And so you're making a connection, a covenant with not only him, but with all of the other people that he's tattooed with. And so, and vice versa. And so all of those spirits that are affecting you, now they're affecting those people. All of the curses that are upon those people as well are now affecting you. And so that's what it boils down to here, is that should Christians be getting tattoos? Well, the answer is no. You can't be opening yourself up to all of those, dangerous demonic spirits to come into your life so that they can attack. And so at the end of the day, that's the reason why God told us in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 28, to not get tattoos. He was doing it to protect us so that we don't get involved, so that we don't open the doors to having all of these demonic spirits come and attack us. Also, personally, I don't think it's a coincidence that tattoos have become more and more popular. And I've been seeing a ton of Christians that have been falling into the sin of getting a tattoo. Well, why is that? Well, I believe that we're in the end, in the end times. And so that's why we're seeing so much evil, and evil is becoming even more prevalent in this world. Well, the reason for that is because the enemy knows that his time is short. And so he's just trying to grab as many people, to fall and open themselves up to these demonic spirits so that they can't fulfill the purpose that God has placed in their lives. Also, this isn't the only video that I'm going to be making about tattoos. This is actually going to be a series of videos, and so make sure to stay tuned for that. If you're watching this in the future, make sure to check the description as well as the pinned comment. And also, for those of you that are wondering, for those of you Christians that have had a tattoo before and are wondering, well, what do I do now that I know this information? Well, I'm actually going to be making a video. It's just a video specifically catered to that, to answering that question. What should you do? How do I break the soul ties that I've made by getting a tattoo? And so also make sure to stay tuned for that. Also, it would really help out the video and the channel if you guys could consider leaving a like and subscribing so that this video can reach more people. Since, as discussed before, there's a lot of brothers and sisters out there that are falling into this sin of getting a tattoo. And so thank you so much, everyone, for watching my video, and God bless.